I've been wanting to play Spintires for a while now. I mean, I've played the original game and I've played this Mudrunner, which is it was basically carried on. The developer carried on development of the game after some falling out he had with the publisher, I believe. So it's the same game but under a separate name and had further changes made to it. So anyways, I have been wanting to play it because it's a pretty relaxing game to play, and it's got cool heavy machinery and stuff in it. So, um, I'm gonna go with the island as a map today, and there are a number of different maps. They're all just different layouts and stuff. Some have water in them, some don't. Some have roads in them, some don't. Gallon's got a little bit of both. Uh, Kind of trying to remember now, because uh, these levels differ a little bit from the ones in the original game, so I'm trying to recall where the routes go. So the overall objective in Spintires, apart from just driving heavy machinery around, is to pick up and deliver logs from a logging station to an actual lumber mill. So you see this line is bouncing back and forth here on the map. Just simulating like, hey, go here and then go here, or go here and then go here, those sort of things. There's no actual requirement of which lumber mill and which logging station you use, so that usually just comes up during during the actual playthrough. I'm gonna change. Uh, they give you. You're allowed to choose which vehicles you start with, and as you play the game, some maps will have other vehicles scattered around that you can recover and use for yourself. So what I'm gonna do today, though, is I'm just gonna change from these default vehicles to a pair that I might want to use. We're gonna use this one here and this one here. The D537 is probably my favorite vehicle in this entire game because it's an 8x8 and it's powerful. Uh, the other one is a pretty solid pick for its weight class. It's pretty strong, has decent clearance, nice traction and whatnot. And I'm gonna play the game on hardcore. Uh, it should be on hard. Yeah, there we go. So there's a couple of different things that change, but generally the key things with hardcore are uh, you have to manually load the logs. The vehicles themselves become more difficult to drive as they become damaged, and there's certain gearbox related things that are harder to do. In easy mode, you also can, as you can see here, you can skip nighttime. You can recovering a vehicle to an unlocked garage. That means that if you flip a vehicle or get it stuck in such a way that you can't actually move it, you can on normal mode you can have that vehicle magically brought back to one of the garages. But on hardcore mode, if a vehicle's stuck, it's stuck. And since I'm playing with just these two vehicles, until I unlock something else, it'll be pretty. It may be pretty rough. I'm gonna check to see what volume settings are like once I actually get in game, because I noticed in the menu there it was kind of loud, but might not make too much of a difference. One thing, so selecting these two vehicles did make me think of one other thing, and that, give me 1 second. I am going to change the game volume. It doesn't need to be so loud. There we go. Okay. So one thing that I did neglect to check in advance with these vehicles is one of the hardcore options was that you have to manually load the logs onto the vehicles, and what that means is I need a crane of sorts. So in order to do that, I'll actually have to make sure that one of these vehicles can fit a crane. Um, and it doesn't look like the D5 here can, so I'm gonna switch to the the C class, whatever. Log carrier with crane. Okay, that's good. So I'm so this will be what I'll use once I actually establish the route that I want to use from log station to lumber mill. So we're going to take a look at the map here. This is the map overall. This is as far out as I can zoom, apparently, which is unfortunate. But this is the island. It's a little 3D representation, and there's a couple of different things we're going to do here today. First, we have these black spots, the watch points. If you get a vehicle to the center of a watch point, you will reveal that area around it. So I'm gonna reveal all four of these watch points. Secondly, we have this garage over here. It says locked 0 of 4. I have to move 4 units of garage parts over there, which is gonna be very easy. Just a straight shot here. I think this gets kind of funky. The space over here gets kind of funky. But apart from that, it's pretty easy. And then lastly, we have our one lumber mill right there. I thought there, oh no, two right there. So these two are the lumber mills. We have to deliver logs to those locations from any one of these log kiosks. So once the map's been revealed and once we get a good sense of what vehicles we have to work with, I'll figure out what route I want to use. This thing in the center here, this block post, is uh, something that wasn't really present in the original maps. It's kind of I don't really like it. It's kind of so it's an arbitrary barrier that lets you through if you don't have logs on the vehicle that you're moving through, but it stops you if you do have logs. So it it basically means that you can't use the nice central highway here to move logs from like right here straight to here. You have to go through some backwoods route to get here. Uh, it's just a level design thing, I think, but no biggie. So I'm gonna use the C5 here. Whoops. I'm gonna use this vehicle to do my early exploration, which means I don't really know if I need much with it. We'll go with a spare wheel because it's got some repair points. That's probably it. The more, like, if I could use like a utility attachment which has repair points and stuff on it, but I don't. It adds to the weight of the vehicle, and I don't want a heavy vehicle for roaming around. So I'm gonna kind of set some waypoints here to help with the exploration. Okay. Most of the controls here are going to be on the keyboard. You'll see me toggling certain things as I just chilling around. But generally, okay. One of the first things, I'm already kind of running into one of the first things I like to avoid, which is running around in automatic transmission mode. I don't like it because it usually engages the differential lock, prevents you, the opposite of that. It prevents you from being able to engage the differential lock, which is nice in certain areas, not having it engaged, but usually, like 9 times out of 10, it's better to just be running around with it on, at least in the cases I've used it. On roads and stuff, I'll want to turn it off, but that's just a quick toggle, press of a button, nothing too big. I think I've already, oh yeah, so I already kind of missed a turn a while back, so I'm kind of on some side road. I'll come up here and take a left at some point, but, so I'm just running around in a low gear right now. It's easier, in some cases it's much slower, but I'll probably just end up switching from a low gear to a high gear manually rather than running around in automatic. There's an annoying, like, jarring effect when the automatic transmission shifts from low to high, and I don't want to deal with that because it's just stuttering and it's just frustrating. Because sometimes it'll switch from a low gear to a high gear, and then stutter, and then suddenly, oh no, now I'm going slow enough to need to be in a low gear. One other reason for me to be running around in, in manual, like in using the settings I'm running with, this, I'm kind of fine-tuning things like the differential lock and all wheels and stuff as I'm running around. That's because another effect of hardcore mode is fuel consumption, and I want to mitigate fuel consumption as much as possible. So when I'm in areas where I don't necessarily need all wheel, or I don't necessarily need diff lock, I'll turn those off. It's just kind of a play it by ear. You gotta feel it out, feel it out, that sort of thing. So I just found the B6, which is, I guess, a tractor back there, and that is recallable even on hardcore mode, it looks like. So I may drive that back to a garage, or I may just recall it to the garage. Whoops. I'm not too concerned about it though. I don't know exactly what it can do as a vehicle. I haven't used a B6 before, so I'm just gonna have to feel that out. Actually, we'll switch over to that real quick. I also apparently have unlocked these two by revealing this. Interesting tarp. Alright, so this is a tractor. It's currently pulling what looks like a utility cart. Actually check that, yeah, utility trailer. I might actually take the D5 to the other garage right now and unlock that to see, let's see, garage parts, garage trailer, so there we go, spare wheel. The D5 is just going to be a lot easier to maneuver. I do, the design of the garage cart that goes with it is kind of interesting, but not too worried about it. It's like on rail wheels, basically, little metal wheels. So this thing burns through fuel like there's no tomorrow. tomorrow, so when I actually use it for other things, like moving logs around, I'll have to be kind of careful and top it off. I may end up using some of the other vehicles to, like, may stage some of the other vehicles with semi-trailers of fuel as refueling points along the way. It's not gonna be that drastic, but, you know, it can be kind of bad, depending. Yeah, so even on this smooth surface, burning 7 liters a minute, 5 now, but it's whatever. I have to feel this vehicle out a little bit sometimes, because I like it because it's very hard to mess up with this thing, because it's an 8x8, because it's got great clearance and all that. But as far as getting a good sense of what the right balance of differential lock and all-wheel and stuff is, it can be kind of strange sometimes. Okay, we're gonna bear left here, I guess. I'm just gonna preemptively turn the differential lock on because I don't really want to get stuck anywhere. So I'm avoiding the puddles. It's not really something I'd have to do if I wasn't pulling a trailer with this thing, but trailers can get stuck pretty easily, so I just don't want to deal with that right now. Sometimes puddles, like right here, this one has some shallows in it, so it's pretty easy to get through, but others can be deceptively difficult. Yeah, straight ahead is the garage now, so once I get these parts there, assuming I don't get stuck, which I won't, because this is the D5, once I get all these parts here, it will unlock the garage. This vehicle will be automatically repaired and topped off to, I think, 1/3 of its fuel level. It's either a quarter or a third. And then I'll probably switch back over to the C6, yeah, just to see what's up with it. So parking brake, load, and straight ahead over here. Once this thing clears off, you'll see that's a fueling station right there. So at some point I'll take one of the other vehicles, probably the C255 over there, and grab a trailer. And just at a glance, it looks like it might be easiest to take logs from this kiosk, because I'm not gonna skirt around the mountain here to go here. I'm probably gonna come through this way, depending. I might have to. I'm not gonna overplan right now, but from this kiosk to this lumber mill is one of the 2 routes that I'm gonna use, and so it might be nice to have a refueling vehicle over here. So we'll switch back to the C6 for a little while. I'm gonna go to that watch point, so just plot a short course. So right now I'm using the C6 as an exploration vehicle. Typically, the game will give you one of the two jeeps as a default for this. Okay, this might be a difficult crossing. Not too bad. Yeah, so the game will typically give you one of the jeeps as an exploration vehicle, and they're usually pretty good because they're super lightweight, so they won't get stuck traveling across like grassy areas, like through trees and stuff. But they will get very, very stuck if you take them through muddy areas, and it can get kind of frustrating. It's also difficult to do things like what I just did, crossing rivers. I opted to use this thing. It is much. It has a great ground clearance, you know, and the wheels have some great grip and everything. So I love using it for that. That's one of the logging stations. Basically, you'll move. If I move a vehicle within that ring, I get a little UI. I can spawn logs in on that little rack, and then I have to use a crane to load them onto another vehicle. So once I get the exploration and stuff done, I'll just set up over there and start loading logs up. So the logs are moved in increments of points. A small load of logs is 2 points, medium is 4, and long logs are 6. So it's usually best to do it in increments of medium logs, just because it's more consistent that way. But you can also do like okay, so the lumber mills require 8 points of logs to clear a given lumber mill. There we go. Didn't have enough momentum to take out that little tree, otherwise that would have been a little smoother. So lumber mills require, might be stuck for the first time. Okay, we're gonna switch to the winch. I'm gonna grab something over there. I'm gonna pull while accelerating just to pull myself over that, and then detach it. Lumber mills require 8 points of logs, so that's either 2 sets of 4, or a 2 and a 6, or 2 2s and 4, you know, all that stuff. But typically the easiest way to take care of it is just by doing 2 sets of 4, because again, it's more consistent that way, and you can establish a process like you know, this is going to be my loading vehicle, and this will be my carrying vehicle and all that. So which way is it? It's pretty nice and dreary out there, isn't it? It's kind of interesting how absolutely washed out some of the colors are. Like, this is supposed to be a vibrant orange here, and it looks very macaroni colored, I guess. Something. Alright, so that's the second of the watchtowers, second of the 4 watchtowers. I might actually try using the D5 to get this one over here. So let's switch back over to the D5. Has the spare wheel. Yeah, let's do that. And as you can see, it's got 200 of 600 liters of fuel, so yeah, it does fill it up to a third of what it should be. It used to be that, like back in the original game, they wouldn't restrict how much you fueled up with at a location in either mode, so it was like, yeah, you rarely had to go to fuel stations, basically. As long as you could go to and from a garage in one trip, you were fine. But they changed that to kind of balance things out and to introduce fuel requirements as a component to the game. Alright, so the last of the lumber mills is over there. I might actually, yeah, I'm just going to take the D5 over there as well. I don't think this is the same island map that I'm thinking of. I think this one and the original. So this is the island map. The original one that I'm thinking of is Volcano. They both are very similar. They both have the two volcanoes on them. But this one, the volcano one, the original one that I'm thinking of, had a long area along the base of one of the mountains that you had to drive through that was mostly underwater. So you had to kind of just guess your way through the entire route. It was frustrating to say the least. Come on. There we go. So that's right here, you've seen one of the reasons why I prefer the manual versus automatic. Not having differential lock lets lets the wheels free spin, which helps a lot if you're kind of stuck. It forces a little more. It's not gonna let the wheels just spin freely if you're stuck in mud. They'll, like, the ones that are completely loose will spin the most, but a little bit of torque will be applied to the ones that are like stuck, and so it'll kind of help push you out of the mud. That's the kind of realism, the real world angle on it, but from a gameplay perspective, it's much easier to just drive around with the differential lock engaged, because that way you don't have all of your engine power being spent spinning some wheel that's not actually doing anything useful, and you move more consistently this way. Alright, so we're here. Where's the this might be treacherous. I don't remember what this stuff over here looks like. Makes for better gameplay that way, right? So one interesting thing from the camera perspective is the moon. So it's switched over to nighttime now, right? We just saw a sunset. The sun's still kind of setting, but it's almost nighttime now. This is what nighttime looks like. Moonlight, I guess, illuminates a lot of things. I could turn on my headlights, but with the headlights on, I start to, well, it's not as apparent right now, but in certain cases, you lose a lot of the lighting that you could use around you, so you can only see what's in the headlight area, and you can't really see what's back here, which can sometimes make things a little frustrating. It's not as apparent right now, so I might actually switch over to that. So you're gonna see me start fiddling with the vehicle controls now, the different different settings. Okay, there we go. That's the darkness I remember. I'm fiddling around with these controls because I've hit the red mark on the fuel consumption, and I don't really want to be there right now. Come on. Yes. I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. I think I'm gonna actually let that sit while I start maneuvering some of these other vehicles around because I want to get that to that watch point, but I don't want to get it stuck. So I'm gonna take the tractor. Wow, that's an interesting sound. I'm gonna take the tractor to. We'll go with the nearest garage, just so that, like, so the tractor is heavily damaged. Well, half damaged, which means that its engine is not as powerful as it would otherwise be right now. But it seems like it's still in a pretty good spot, honestly. Oh. I'm gonna go first for a little while just to see it do its thing. I haven't actually used a tractor yet in the game. I've only ever really used the trucks themselves, so this is new and interesting. And a little bit of free spinning, but not really getting stuck, which is nice because the tractors are basically just giant wheels. That's all they are. I don't think this is going to be something I want to use regularly though, because this cart, well, actually I forgot here. I can use it to repair the vehicle itself. Use the trailer to repair the tractor itself. But I'm not a fan of vehicles that don't have four-wheel drive, or reasons such as this. I'm stuck on a log here. I can always just winch, which makes things pretty easy, but I don't want to have to do that constantly. So the B-class vehicles, which is what this one is, are typically, they all kind of typically suffer from these aspects, namely the rear-wheel drive only. You know, they're like farm vehicles. There's a pickup truck that has a log bed in it and everything. That's actually the other B-class vehicle that was on the coastline that I sort of explored. The coastline that I explored with the C-class vehicle. See, this is frustrating. Not going to use this thing once I get it out of here. It's just going to sit at this garage. We'll leave all the real work to the real vehicles, I think. This thing has no place being here. I'm gonna mix the trailer for now. Maybe it'll move a little better under just propelling itself around. I'll just find a nice corner in the garage lot to put it. Just kind of keep it out of the way. There we go. Oops. Okay. So that's that. I'm just gonna show you this one. Oh, this is actually not the one I was thinking of specifically. This is... So, let's see what we've got to work with here. Alright, so this is a proper truck. It is a B-class vehicle, but it's not the one that I was thinking of. So, I'm gonna take this to this garage. We'll go to the other one. See if I can get it stuck. Okay, here we go. So the C-class vehicles are typically really nice for off-roading and hauling things. There's probably some actual nomenclatures, some naming scheme that they use for it, but it's basically lightest to heaviest, A through like E. Um, so, you know, of the vehicles I'm working with here, the D class, the D537 is the heaviest vehicle I've got. It's the 8x8. This B class is very similar to the other C truck that I'll be driving here, the 255, which was also over there. But I think it really will just boil down to an engine strength sort of thing, and I don't have a lot of faith in this particular model, which may be misplaced, but as it stands, I'm just gonna go with what I know, and what I know is that the C-Class trucks are typically really well suited for hauling logs around. So we'll just get this back to the garage as well, and just leave it there. There's no real reason. I don't have to be moving this stuff around right now, apart other than because I want to, and it's also nice to get as many of the vehicles back as possible, because if for some reason I manage to really screw things up and get stuck somewhere, I can always use vehicles like this one as like anchors to try to winch a vehicle out of a rut or something. There's a while back I was playing one of the original levels on the original game, and I had taken one of my C-Class trucks over a very narrow wooden bridge, and it had almost made it all the way across, but then it slipped and kind of rolled sideways. So then I thought, okay, well, I'll just use the other truck I have to go, you know, pull it out of there. And so I start going through this whole ordeal of trying to winch one truck out with the other truck, and I accidentally get the other truck stuck as well. So at that point, the only other thing I had was the Jeep. So the Jeep went on a perilous journey across this entire level. This was like at the point when I just wasn't very acclimated to driving that thing around. So I managed to make it all the way across the level, and I managed to use the, like, you know, get the Jeep stuck between some trees and use it as like an anchor point for the other vehicles to winch them out, and manage to salvage the whole operation using this little thing. Alright, so that was the B131. Now we're gonna take the 255 here, which again looks very similar. You know, it's got stockier tires than the other one did, than the B131 did. This one I'm going to take to this garage. I'm not sure yet what exactly I'm going to do with each of these, but I am gonna end up setting one of them up as a picket fence. I am gonna set one of them up as a refueling vehicle at some point. What's going on? Oh, okay. So yeah, I want either this truck or the B131 to be my refueling vehicle for the for the D5. And if I can, I'll figure out what I want to do when I get to that point. But if I move this one to the southern garage, I can just get a trailer there, go fill it up, get it out of there, and just bring it along the road to the corner roughly near where the tractor was recovered. So kind of seeing one of the downsides to this particular vehicle right now, one of the things I don't like too much about it, it doesn't really have the clearance, the ground clearance that the C6 and the B131 did. So it's not necessarily struggling, but it's not moving through some of the mud as fast as the other ones would have. On the flip side, it's going to be much harder to get this vehicle stuck, but I do tend to favor speed over the ability to not get stuck. Just because I've driven enough in this game, I can kind of spot what areas I will and will not get stuck in. Kind of how to work my way around them. Kind of like that right there. So I'd like to just work with vehicles that will move. I guess once this thing's gotten going, it's been pretty consistent with its movement, which is nice. So maybe I'll use it for what I want to do here, but we'll see. For now, again, just getting it to the garage. Really just burning time till daylight again, and then I'll take the D5 out towards that last watch point. Okay. So that's that. What else have we got? Take the C6 back to this garage as well. Just gonna drive along the shore for this one. Nothing too complicated. It looks like it's starting to get to be sunrise soon. It's definitely getting lighter out. This vehicle here is basically just the chassis with a cab attached to it at this point. And there's one vehicle that's new in Mudrunner that wasn't in the original game that I've only used once so far, but it's kind of interesting because it really does look like it is just a chassis. So it's like a D537, the heavy vehicle, but without all of the body to it. Like it has a small cab sort of perched on top of it, but then everything else is just covered in like a metal walkway sort of stuff. So it's like it really is just a chassis with nothing else. There we go. So you can see this thing ended up driving a lot faster while still being consistent with its movements than the B131 or this C255 did. So that's one of the reasons why I tend to favor it over other vehicles. Alright, it is now light out. I've recovered almost every vehicle. I'll switch back to the D535 and set a destination to the waypoint, watch point. So part of why I paused at night was I wanted to get a sense of where I could go with this thing. I was thinking about just going straight down the river, like kind of along the shore, but you know, this thing could really just tough it out as well. So I'll start doing that and see how it goes. I'm gonna cut. Well, I didn't mean to do that, but this thing has the turn radius of something that doesn't really have turn radius, I guess. But cut straight there. There we go. And then just skip across the river here. Yeah, this thing just does not have a care in the world. Alright. Sweet. So the map's been fully explored. Ooh, and we have a K700 here. That thing is interesting. Okay, first and foremost, I want to figure out how I want to get back. I guess taking this road up to here. Well, actually, double back here. Go back the way I came, I guess. So, if I take this thing back that way, worst case, I'll end up somewhere over here if I run out of fuel, and one of these vehicles can grab a tank and bring it over here. But I should be able to hit the fuel station before getting into the garage, and that means the D535 will be topped off entirely. The real issue is going to be getting through these trees, so let's put a marker there, and I'm just going to follow the river back up. So I have probably 3 minutes worth of fuel remaining on this thing. So just kind of just a tiny bit stuck. Who would have guessed that trying to ford a river in a vehicle that weighs many tons is probably not the greatest of ideas. Fortunately, the winches in this game are absolute bullshit, so you can get away with a lot of things, including this right here. Oops, parking brake. Almost there, almost there. There we go. Okay. So now that I've done all of that, I do have to kind of watch my fuel consumption because I have about 2 minutes worth now. Maybe not even that, maybe a minute and a half or so, and I still have to travel all that way. Now all that way includes driving on a lot of actual roads and stuff, but I do still have to be kind of careful. So I'd rather not get like stuck, so I am gonna just drive this drive all this way using the diff lock and all-wheel drive. Well, settings permitting. So I'll just diff lock up when it looks like I'm starting to kind of lose momentum. Yeah, that's probably the low fuel sort of sounds. I might actually check something else here. What do we have going on with this thing? Okay, it's got a fair amount of fuel. Alright, so I gotta see if I can even remember how to. There we go. So we'll just kind of pack that up for now. So I can probably use this to tow the D5 a little bit of the way, because this thing is powerful. It doesn't have a lot of traction sometimes. The wheels are big and goofy, but it is powerful, and I might be able to take advantage of that here, especially since most of the rest of the route that I'm going to be traveling on is level terrain. So I'll set that up as a winch. I think it should be good here. So the winching other vehicles has two modes. It's got a drive mode and pull mode. Right now I've got it set in drive mode, so the D537 is just following me basically, but if it gets like stuck, I'll give it a little bit of a nudge. But this is the easiest way to transport multiple vehicles at the same time. And looks like we're going this way. Yes. Which is fine, is we'll just go up to the road here. So yeah, in some cases you can, I think one of the most common cases I've seen for towing vehicles like this with good effect is using one C-Class truck to tow another C-Class truck, with both of them loaded up with medium logs and one of them running with a crane setup. Because what that does is, come on, you can do it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now we're just towing, which is cool too. So I'm gonna actually use the winch to toggle the mode. I'm gonna pull the D-Class truck a little closer just so that I don't have to worry too much about what it's doing. So the two C-Class trucks, medium log carts on both, and a crane on one. Basically you can just go to a lumber mill, or go to a log kiosk, pick up enough logs for both vehicles, and then drive straight to a lumber mill and complete that objective in one go. That's the general idea behind it. Alright, this might be kind of funky. We'll see how this goes. Not too bad, not too bad. Perfect, okay. Come on, you can do it. Sweet. Alright. So this is the main road, I think. If my waypoints completely disappear here, then yes. Okay. Which means the garage is over this way. and I am burning fuel like it's nobody's business. So we'll see how that ends up panning out here. So unlike the other vehicles, I've let this one kind of run in automatic mode. I did the same thing with the tractor, and that's because one of the two settings here is not toggleable, and so there's not really, especially with diff lock, it's not usually too much of a big deal. In cases like this, I might be more interested in moving in first gear than second, because at some point you're just coasting along mud that you're not actually getting any traction on. But, oh well. I'm starting to wonder if I'm actually going to make it. I mean, at least there will be the convenience factor of having both heavy vehicles in close proximity, so I can just top them both off at the same time, fuel-wise. But I do see the garage. The problem is I have to cross this puddle, and then I have to cross the next one over there. This one appears to not be that much of a big deal, but this next one I have to cut across to the left over there. We'll see how that goes, because I have to cross this patch of mud here too. But it's downhill, so I guess that makes it easier. I have a minute's worth of fuel left, so as long as I don't get too severely stuck right here, I should be okay. Well, I thought I had a minute's worth, but we'll see. Oh, it's gonna be close, come on. We can do it. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna detach that. I'm gonna toggle all wheel just to see if I can get this thing to go. These final few steps. Come on. And... oh my god, please. You're joking, right? Toggle all wheel, and it's out. That's ridiculous. Okay, whatever. So we'll switch to the 255 for two reasons. One, to get it out of the way so that these guys can get in here, and two, to tow the other one into this space. There we go. This over here, so that's kind of in a little space. There we go. Repaired, refueled. Now I'm just gonna back up real quick. Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine the engineers, you know, whoever, the garage mechanics, just like, oh no, you know, it's not really in the area I work in, so you can just suck it. You know, if you can find some way to move that vehicle like 2 inches further, then maybe I'll consider working on it, but I can't do anything while it's over there. So, amazing. Alright, so that's all of our vehicles recovered. That's the map is cleared. Everything is at a garage now, so now start the actual planning for this. So I think what I'm gonna opt to do here is I might work out of this log kiosk and just run across here for now to this one. And since all the log kiosks are over here, there's no real reason to really like shuffle operations around. So I'll set up here, go to this lumber mill first, and then once I've delivered 2 sets of 4 here, I can then go down to this one along this route here, kind of basically just hit this intersection, come here, turn this way, cut through the trees right here, cut across the river, and down this way. So that may or may not work, but as you can see, this is kind of why the block post introduction doesn't really bother this level too much. It's because most of the routes have to go through the side areas anyways, but on some of the other levels it's much more arbitrary. So anyways, I'm gonna want a refuel, so I'll set up a refueling station first. Since all of my vehicles over here are fuel capable. I wonder if... Okay, that thing can't carry a fuel semi-trailer. Fuel semi-trailer. Fantastic. It's probably not... It's a little more than I probably need, but... I'd still like it. Let's see. Need the trailer hitch, there we go. And hopefully I'm not in a place that's gonna get me like stuck here, because I'm right between all of the other vehicles. This should be pretty easy to move, especially since it's just along the main road where I'm trying to take it. The only real hang up is going to be this first part here, like right over this ridge, because that's that massive puddle. And I'm going to try to move a full truck's worth of fuel, which is going to be a little more taxing, but I think this thing can do it. Maybe with some help, you know, from the D5, but we'll see how this goes right here. Okay, let's see. So I think I'm gonna cut here and then hang a left. See how that goes. Good so far. Looking good. I just have a little bit of trouble crossing here, but I guess not. Yeah, so the C-Class trucks are very nice, as you can see. I think this was the one that I was talking shit about earlier too, so I'm so sorry, truck. I'll never say it again. So yeah, gonna take this along the road again to roughly where I recovered the tractor. It's just that little T intersection on the actual road, and then just kind of park it there. To refuel, you can refuel other vehicles off of this, so I just have to drive the other vehicles to within close proximity of this vehicle, and then we'll be good. I think the combination of the trailer weight like applying weight on the rear wheels here and the width of the tires is kind of helping with a lot of the traction in this particular case. Alright, sweet. We made it. I guess this is the first... Is this the first? Yeah, it must be the first time I've driven through the block post. Could have sworn I'd taken the D5 through there, but I'm not sure. So yeah, that was the block post. I've tried a couple of different tricks to slip through it, but nothing works. I've even tried going as far as detaching a trailer full of logs and trying to winch the trailer through the block post. It doesn't work very well. Alright, so I'm just gonna set this up right here, actually. Looks nice. And that way, whatever vehicle I end up choosing to actually do the hauling of logs can just stop off here after each trip. Now, one thing I don't know if I'd considered, I was talking about doing separate sets of 4 logs, but I think the D537 can do 2 sets of, let's see here, medium log trailer, so 1. I'm just thinking of different ways to do this. A log carriage carries 3 sets of short logs, which are 3 points, not 2. So I could theoretically do both sites with 3 trips with the D537 instead of 4 trips with other vehicles. If there were 2 medium log carts, I could do something else, but it doesn't look like anything that exists for this. Another option would just be to do what I mentioned before and having one vehicle tow another vehicle, but which might be doable actually. What's this thing got? Log carrier with crane. So actually that might be the option I want to go with. I'll take the 2 original vehicles. As I mentioned before, let's take this and the D5 out there. Maybe. Or I could just go with the safest bet. I'll do a D5 with a short log, with a log carriage for short logs and a short log cart carrier. And if I do that, I can just do the entire thing in 3 trips, and it'll be with the 1 vehicle, not with multiple vehicles, so that simplifies things a bit. It'll be with a vehicle that will absolutely not get stuck, and I'll take the K700 over there to do the actual loading, I think. Alright, yeah, it doesn't make much of a difference whether I use short log, long log there. So I'm gonna top this off up here. I'm gonna drive this up to the northernmost log kiosk. and just get this to where I want it to go, and then I'll take the K700 over there, and from there, basically just finish the game. It's not going to be that quick, but it's not going to take too much longer either. It's just going to be 3 trips with a vehicle that's impossible to stop. Every time I've said something like that, it seems like I've been like, I've said it like right before some sort of situation where it could theoretically get stopped, and then I'm like, oh god, have I feel like I'm like jinxing myself. But this thing is just made out of wheels, made out of traction and power, so there's not really anything that can stop it. Like if you look at it without any carts, without any attachments on it, it's essentially 2 giant steel I-beams with wheels attached to it, and motor. So, can't really do anything about that. Let's see what it's like trying to run it in a higher gear. Not helping too much. It's starting to get dark again, which isn't too big of a deal because I'm not stuck in the middle of nowhere like I was previously. Trying to get stuck? What's going on here? Nothing. Okay, cool. So the one thing I did kind of overlook with this setup is that I'm gonna have to load all 6 sets of logs separately, which will be a little tedious because you have to, in hardcore mode, you have to manually load logs onto the vehicles. I don't remember if you have to do that in normal mode in Mudrunner, but you didn't have to manually load logs in normal mode in the original game. So it'll just be a matter of getting the front loader, the K700, out there and setting up the logs to be loaded, and it's not too difficult. It's actually pretty easy with the 700. The whole process of loading logs gets kind of like, it just takes a little bit of learning, but once you've learned how to do it, it just is a little tedious, that's all. So I'm not going to bother picking up fuel this time because I'm sitting on like 90% right now. The roads are really, really easy for this thing to drive on, using like 10% of the fuel I'd normally use. I set up a waypoint though. Yeah, there's this grainy sort of effect on the lit areas here. Not too sure if I like it that much compared to the unlit areas, which is why I usually don't bother with headlights. So if I toggle it off, you know, I can still mostly see the stuff I need to see, but for the sake of whatever, I'll just have them on. So this route is actually very straightforward. There's not too much funky stuff I have to do the first logging area. The second one is going to be a little more frustrating because I have to go through the back roads around where the one of the volcanoes is. And this crossing here isn't too shallow either, which is a relief because we saw earlier the D5 had a little bit of, just the tiniest bit of trouble getting over one of the deep crossings. So I don't really want to have to deal with that more than I have to. So yeah, once this thing's over here, I'll go grab the K700, bring it over here, and then start doing the loading, which will be pretty quick if I set things up correctly. I'll just park this like right here for now, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so I'll switch to the K700. Interesting, this thing can pull logs too. I did not know that. No, I did not go. This vehicle, I might top this off at the vehicle that's at the crossing, just because I didn't bother going to a fuel depot, and I don't care to double back for that. And we have half a tank of fuel, that's not too bad. It should be fine, just making it through everything. It moves pretty quickly, actually. A little too quickly. In fact, the steering's kind of funky because it's you know, the wheels don't turn. It's the articulating body or whatever it's called. So it can be kind of strange just driving it around normal surfaces. But whatever. Interesting. Yeah, we're fine. There we go. I don't want to have to mess around with this particular part of road too much if I can help it. Just because it's, you know, a lot muddier than the rest of it. I don't expect this thing to leave the logging area, so I am gonna have it get fueled up. I have to switch over to the other vehicle for that though. Go. Just gotta try my damnedest to not get this thing stuck before I actually get to the logging area. Which shouldn't be too difficult. I don't think there were any areas that were too problematic between here and there. Should be smooth sailing. I think the last time I tried completing this level, I actually used one of the B or C class trucks to haul the logs from this place, and I actually did a chunk of long logs for some reason. I don't remember why exactly, but trying to get that across this river was too irritating. A lot of winching involved, definitely. Alright, so now that this thing is gonna be in the area, I'm not gonna move via D5 right now. I'm just gonna load up some logs and drive them over to dump that out. Dump it off over there. So loading logs with the front loader here is not too complicated. Just spawn. I don't know why it's so laggy, but spawn those in and then get this lined up. Have to kind of do this in automatic mode. Just set that up. Back this into the logs. Through there. Let's grab them. I don't remember the controls being this annoying. Alright, got our little load of logs. So now I just have to figure out where exactly the other thing is. D5's back over there, I think. Nailed it. Whoops, not that. Come on. So the way that works then, let me get this away from the D5 for a second. The way that works is now that this vehicle has those in the back, should okay, there we go. Yeah, so you just get the logs into a trailer, and if they're all roughly aligned, you should be able to pack them just like that. So with this stuff, it's been pretty easy, and it should be pretty easy to do the remnants of the packing here. I just have to do this 5 more times, which should be pretty easy. Oh, oh. Almost botched that. Hotkeys are fun. I actually hadn't considered one thing here. Hopefully I can unload just one of the trailers at a location, otherwise I'll have to do some funny detaching stuff. I'll elaborate on that in a second. Hopefully that's packable. Yes. Okay. So we'll see when I get to this lumber mill what things look like. Let's back up a little bit. And nail this. Alright, so we're on our way to deliver the first batch of logs. Should be first of 3. I will have to refuel, it looks like, burning 40 something liters a minute uphill. Oh, almost got sidetracked there. So again, this crossing here should be pretty easy. It's probably the only thing I'm really concerned about, to be honest. There's the other river crossing, and I think once I get over to the volcano side of the island, there's a third one that I'll have to do once I'm actually moving stuff all the way across. Could actually just try that now to see how bad it really is, but I think I'll just complete the first logging area first. So this crossing was the other one that I was slightly concerned about. This is the second one. You'll occasionally see that dangerous water level. That means, water is high enough to start waterlogging the engine or causing damage. Some levels like flood and river require you to actually ford the rivers, basically. And if you don't choose your paths very well, so on flood, for instance, there's an actual road that you can sort of follow that's underwater. You just have to be able to stay very close to it, otherwise you'll end up sinking yourself. I'm gonna drop these off first and then get fuel on the way back. So you have to follow this road very carefully, otherwise you'll submerge the vehicle too much and it'll get wrecked, and then you have to find some other way to recover it. So it's very difficult because not only do you have to do that during the exploration bit, once you actually start hauling logs, you have to do it then as well. So, okay. So I have the option to unload the entire truck, which means that when I go to do this the next time, I may have to just detach the trailer temporarily to do it that way. One of the, I think it's the long log cart on the medium trucks, like the B's and C's. It's actually collapsible, so you can pack the entire cart up for the return journey, which is kind of nice. This one is actually not too bad either, though, because the way that this trailer links up with this vehicle and it having its own pivoting point right here kind of helps when I have to do long like turnarounds like that. Push to the C5, fuel, back to the B5. Just pretend I'm going faster right now. So the blockades, the barriers, whatever you want to call them, they're composed of the little crossing arm that will raise or lower depending on whether you've got logs on you or not. They will also, they're also comprised of these like metal plates that basically span the entire traversable area along where the blockade is set, so you can't really get around it that way either. Like it's a little bit of overkill actually. There's the physical barriers, like the actual objects themselves, and then there's a massive invisible barrier, which is what was preventing me from trying to like tow a cart through. So it was interesting to say the least, but whatever. Again, it doesn't matter that much on this level. It does matter on some other levels where it makes it much more, makes the journey much longer and treacherous. So this one's pretty quick and easy actually, because I'm already almost back to where the logs are. I might consider looping around for the third trip just to make it so I don't have to do my like 19-point turn with this thing. But we'll see what happens. Actually, now that I say that, I might consider, when I detach the trailer at the next site, I might try just leaving it there. Like leaving it there, taking half a vehicle's worth of logs to the last point, and then coming back and picking it up for the return trip. Switch back over to the K700. Now we get to load some logs. Daylight, which will be nice. Not make much of a difference, but a difference nonetheless. There we go. The controls for this are... I seem to remember, like, I thought they used to be a little smoother. They might have been a little different. They might have changed things a little bit, but some of the controls, some of the advanced controls, like vehicle tools and stuff, can be used while you're driving around like this. Like the winch is something that's interactable while you're driving. But I thought that the loader used to be that way too. Seems like I might be wrong with that thought. Up, folks. Camera's gotten all funky on me. I don't know why. Nailed it. Kind of unfortunate. Nothing too crazy has happened in this playthrough. Mostly because I've played this game a lot and have gotten pretty good at preventing vehicles from getting stuck, or, you know, I'm relying on heavy vehicles to do some of this stuff. There are some challenges related to doing things more difficult ways, such as delivering logs with the B-130, which is like a pickup truck, basically. And those... I've done a lot of those as well already, but some of them just are more tedious than actually fun, so some of them I might be less inclined to actually try attempting again. Some of the challenges require stuff that's hard to involuntarily, hard to avoid, I guess. One example, the example that comes to mind is there's an achievement called Bull, which is where you deliver a set of logs without ever using brakes on the vehicle that you're delivering them with. So it starts from the moment the vehicle is loaded to the moment you deliver the logs. And I tried that a couple of different times, and the time that I finally got it to work, I had actually gone and shit, what's the word I'm thinking of? I changed my key bindings on my keyboard. I unbound my reverse key, which triggers a brake sort of thing, and my emergency brake. And by doing that, I was finally able to get it done, but not until then. Alright, pack. We have another full load. Okay. So with this set, what I'm gonna do, I don't think I'll be able to voluntarily unload half of the logs, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to detach the trailer at the first logging point, and then I'm going to take the second set of logs without the trailer to the second logging point, return to the first one, pick up the trailer, detach, and then unload it, and then return back here for the final load for the far point. It's kind of funky, but it'll get the job done, I think. starting to kind of watch the clock now. I think it took me about 15 minutes to do that last round. So probably take me 20 or 25 for this because I have to go to the far location, and then maybe another 20 or 25 for the last round trip. Although the last one won't be a round trip, so another 10 to 15 for that, I guess. Should be done. Not too far from now, I think. So it's been, I think, 2 days in game so far. 2 or... yeah, it must have been 2. And 2.5. Gonna travel almost 5 kilometers, whatever, for whatever that's worth. So I'm gonna probably just disengage the trailer right here. That way, when I come back, it'll be easier to re-engage with it. So just like that. And now, we're gonna go on a bit of an adventure. Here, put across, back like that. I do think I should fuel up before I go. So this is going to be a pretty quick and easy trip because it's just the D535 again. No bells, no whistles, just this thing and logs. And the logs only make it stronger, I guess. More weight on the wheels means wheels have more power behind them, I guess. Something like that. Who knows? And actually it looks like this bit is going to be a lot easier too, because all I have to do is just drive straight right there. Cut across this little body of water right here, maybe? Yep. Easy peasy. Then it's just a matter of following the road ahead of me. Kinda. Yep. Pretty much that. So there we go. Might actually, I'm going to switch over to auto for a little while, see if I can benefit from a little bit of speed. Apparently not. Whatever. The only time I've ever really noticed automatic making much of a difference speed-wise is when I'm on flat surfaces, and even then, it's usually more of a problem than not. Like the Jeep, for instance, has 5 gears, and it loves jumping up and down between those based on small adjustments to speed. Makes it a real pain in the ass to actually drive around. Should be the last crossing I have to do. I don't know if I've done this one yet, but that was nothing. So, here we are. With a negligible amount of fuel burned. Just hit the brakes. My unload message, there it is. So unload that. Just go back the way we came. This might actually be, that was like 5 minutes, I think. much quicker than I thought. So they have this shifter here, and they've made it so that you can actually interact with it from a UI standpoint. You can see like the buttons are being highlighted, the knob itself is being highlighted when I mouse over it. But it's much easier to just do that stuff using keyboard hotkeys. Like R on the keyboard for me will toggle that, like as if I had clicked it. And then it's just a matter of moving the mouse in the pattern that you need to go. So if I wanted to reverse, I would just move my mouse down. So it's all pretty easy stuff. Just managing things like that. Playing around with different things like speed, not. I really like what this game has become, or you know what this game is. It's very peaceful, very almost serene, and you get to watch big trucks make their way through rugged terrain. And I particularly like what the dev did with Mudrunner, because he actually started fleshing the game out a little more than what it was. The original Spintires was pretty much just what we're seeing here today. It was start a level, get logs from point A to point B, but the only option you really had was to start a level. He has since added the ability to pick and choose what vehicles you start with, so you can challenge yourself more or less. There are actual challenge modes on the maps and challenge maps themselves. Like there's one in which you have to they're meant to teach you different things about like how to safely traverse with the vehicles and things like that. One level is like rock climbing in one of the jeeps. That's more like a a rock climbing jeep. And one of the challenges with that one is to do it entirely in first-person camera. I have not used first-person camera that much, but it's this. So it would be trying to play through an entire level like this. And yeah, that can be very interesting, particularly when you're trying to climb a hill in a vehicle that could just take a tumble at any moment, which was kind of cool. Another one is, I think the level I'm thinking of is meant to teach you how to avoid certain types of mud. You're in this old car actually, and you're trying to drive to this house that's just down the road, and it's kind of really amusing actually. I think one of the challenges for that is to make it all the way without letting off the gas, but I'm not sure. Something like that though. So yeah, definitely added a little more. The achievements are all still here. There's each level has its own clearing the map, which I've done. Recovering, I don't know if there's one for recovering all the vehicles, but definitely clearing all of the lumber mills is kind of an obvious one. There's achievements for there is an achievement for completing a map without looking at the map. There's one for completing the map without revealing any of the waypoint locations, which is really not too difficult. I think one of the changes from the old game to the new game is they added, like, if you drive through a masked area, like a watchtower area, in the current game, in this game, it will show you that path that you've kind of driven through on the map, but in the original one it didn't. Like, it was full on, like, blacked out until you reveal it. So in that sense, the older game was a little more difficult, and the newer one, like, that particular achievement, that accomplishment, clearing the game without clearing the waypoints, became a lot easier because you could see the paths that you used to traverse through the black areas. Whereas in the old game you couldn't, and you had to rely on memory to make it through. Alright, so we're back here. This is the final set of logs that I'll have to haul out. So I'll just get topped off. Looks like I might end up finishing this at nighttime, based on timelines. But at least I'll get this loaded up. During the daytime, that is. I think having this front loader here makes things kind of easy from the log loading aspect, because if I didn't have this, I would have to load these one or two at a time with a crane, and the crane isn't impossible to use, but it can be kind of frustrating. Looks like I made this piece here a little challenging for myself by parking the D5 near a bunch of rocks. Not too much of a challenge though, it looks like. This thing's stuck inside of itself, it looks like. So maybe I spoke too soon. There we go. Okay. Sometimes there's weird physics glitches, but whatever. Let's play that by ear. That to, like, right there to hopefully avoid that again. Should be good this time. Okay. Go. Let's rotate those into the bed. 5 to unload. Rotate back out. Close. And we should be good. There we go. Hopefully that's good. last round of logs as the sun's setting on the third day. Not low enough. Alright, cool. Our last round here. So this last stretch here should be pretty straightforward. It's just going back out to the second log point by the volcano. Clear that. Get the V5 up. Looks like all the logs are good to pack. Perfect. Which means all I have to do now is go hit the refueling point and then head out to the last place. You don't have to do anything like recover all the vehicles or anything to complete a level. It's just hit each of the logging areas up with all the logs required to clear them, and then you're done. So at this point, pretty much in the clear. I don't think I should run into any problems on the second leg of this trip with the trailer. It should be smooth sailing. I think these crossings here are the hardest part. Might be a little bit of mud on the other side that I have to deal with, but everything else seemed pretty smooth. So really the only concern I have at this point is fuel, and since I brought the refueling truck out to that corner, I shouldn't have to deal with any real issue. Any issues between here and the completion of the game. It looks like I'll end up going a little into the fourth day, maybe? Not maybe I will, but I don't remember what time it was when I started the game, so maybe I'll still have completed it within 3 in-game days, time-wise. So I feel like they start you off in the morning, so it should be at least 5 or 6. top off. Switch back. One of the other achievements I know of, I believe, is to complete the game without using the map. So it's without using the map, but an extension of that I didn't mention is you've noticed that every time I switch between a vehicle, I've done it using the map, like using the interface there. You can switch between vehicles through the advanced menu, the thing I've been going into for a bunch of the different settings with these things. So it is possible to complete the game without using the map at all, and while at the same time using more than one vehicle. But that does end up requiring that you run one of the dual C-class truck setups. You have to configure one with a crane, one without, and then you just have to drive them to every place you possibly need to go. So you have to drive them to get fueled up, you have to drive them to pick up logs, to drop off logs, all that jazz. So, like, towing the second vehicle is the key like the key angle there, thing you have to do, because you will need like, no single vehicle in this, like, only one, I guess only one or two of the vehicles in this game can do everything, but it's easier to play through with more than one vehicle, one, you know, for utility purposes, one for hauling purposes, things like that. So it's better to just run with more than one, and so finding ways to run with more than one is it's definitely something you want to put thought into if you're trying to do something like that. In this case, I've effectively played through the game using 3. I did, well, okay, 4, I guess. There's the loader, this thing, and then the fuel truck, and then the light one I used for exploration early on. So I could dial that back a little bit, but it wouldn't really be worth the trade-offs. So I think with this, I will have completed the level. Let's see here in a second. Maybe. Yep, there we go. Just a little over 2 hours. And that's a full clear. I unlocked all the trucks, cleared all the garages, and the watch points. And as you can see, you can try to beat the game with as many or as few of the stars as possible. I think the 6 star was the default configuration. 7 is the 2 heavy vehicles I used. So you could try beating the game with 1 or 2, but it sounds terrible, miserable, whatever. So that's all I've got. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Have a good one.